If you're watching my channel, there's a high chance you've been in a political argument with someone before. If you've never been in a political argument with someone before, there's an even higher chance that you've witnessed one. The reason people often have heated arguments about what values matter most is because people are operating at different stages of psychological and cultural development. A conservative might prioritize tradition and order. A liberal might value equality and systemic reform. And someone who has lost trust in the political system altogether may seek independence from the choices that are handed to us through electoral politics. Spiral dynamics helps explain why these differences happen. When it comes to political or moral values, the differences aren't just opinions. They're rooted in different worldviews. Elon Musk and other billionaire conservatives operate from a different level of development than the college students and the rest of the world who are protesting to free Gaza. And while it may sound offensive to those who agree with those billionaires, spiral dynamics suggests that those billionaires and those who agree with them may actually be functioning at a lower level of value development in some areas than some of the students and other protesters challenging global injustice. Spiral dynamics maps human growth, both personal and cultural, like a spiral, with each level represented by a different color. From the bottom to the top, we have beige, purple, red, blue, orange, green, yellow, and turquoise. This model was developed by psychologists Claire W. Graves and later expanded by Don Beck and Christopher Cowan. It offers a powerful lens for understanding how individuals, communities, and entire civilizations evolve in response to life's challenges. From raw survival to tribalism, from rational achievement to spiritual wholeness, each stage reflects a distinct way of seeing the world. Whether you're trying to lead, grow, or just make sense of today's chaos, understanding spiral dynamics can help you navigate with greater clarity, compassion, and power. By the end of this video, you will have a deeper understanding of spiral dynamics, and you will also have an idea about which stage you fall in and which stage other people that you know fall in. This video is part of a series that explains the bigger picture of human consciousness and the lines of human development as proposed by integral theory, developed by theorist and author Ken Wilber. Ken Wilber's integral theory provides a comprehensive framework for understanding the complexity of human growth. It integrates various lines of development, each one representing a distinct area of human evolution. These lines from cognitive and moral growth and spirituality shape how we experience and interact with the world. Wilber's approach emphasizes that these lines of development are interwoven and evolve simultaneously, influencing one another as we move through different stages of life. In past videos, we've explored cognitive lines of development like Piaget's and Keegan's cognitive development theories, and Loevinger's ego development theory, showing how our thinking evolves through structured stages. Spiral dynamics adds a different dimension. It looks at the value systems that drive our behavior, from survival instincts to tribal belonging, rational achievement, systemic awareness, and spiritual integration. This series will explore how spiral dynamics fits into the broader map of integral theory. We'll examine how people at different stages view politics, relationships, success, and even morality in radically different ways. You will finally understand why conservatives think the way that they do, why liberals think the way that they do, and why people who are post-partisan think the way that they do. Understanding these value systems helps us better navigate conflict, communicate across divides, and grow into more expansive ways of being. Ken Wilber emphasizes that development is multifaceted. A person might be cognitively brilliant, able to debate theories or create technological breakthroughs, but still operate from a narrow, self-centered value system. So spiral dynamics helps us see that real evolution is more than intellect, or more than just being book smart. It's about how we live, lead, relate, and care toward one another. And so this is why this work matters. Some adults still hold worldviews that seem stuck in earlier stages of human development, not because they lack intelligence, but because their value systems have not evolved to match the complexity of the world around them. Both society and individuals can evolve. We've seen through history that society has evolved, And we know that through maturity and transformation, people can evolve and change their worldviews. So spiral dynamics helps explain how people and societies grow through a series of value stages, from basic survival and tribal loyalty to rational achievement, systems thinking, and beyond. Each stage represents a different way of understanding life, shaped by the problems people are trying to solve at that level. And unfortunately, not everyone moves through all these stages. Life experiences like trauma, cultural pressure, or rigid belief systems can keep someone anchored in a worldview that no longer serves them. That's why someone can be intellectually gifted, yet emotionally reactive, overly rigid, or blind to perspectives that are beyond their own. All of these levels have blind spots, and recognizing them is the first step to growing. Albeit the higher levels have fewer downsides than the lower levels have. I'll use examples from real life history and present day to illustrate each stage in action so that you can better understand where you and others might be on this journey of development. Beige is the foundation of human development, and I won't spend too much time on this level because not many people are at this level except for during extreme circumstances. At this stage, everything is about survival, finding food, water, warmth, and safety. This is the level that early humans were at, and where people today might revert to during extreme circumstances like famine, war, or severe trauma. It's not a choice or a mindset. Beige is the raw biological will to stay alive. The next stage up is purple, or KinSpirits. Purple is the stage where humans began to move beyond pure survival and into tribal living. This stage centers around safety through belonging. People organize themselves into small groups or clans, bound by shared rituals, traditions, and deep family or ancestral ties. Life is guided by the wisdom of elders, the spirits of ancestors, and sacred customs passed down through generations. Historical tribal leaders often embodied this stage, serving as protectors and spiritual guides for their people. The purple worldview creates strong bonds of trust and identity within the group. It teaches respect for nature, reverence for tradition, and loyalty to kin. But since this is one of the lower stages, it's obviously going to have some downsides. It tends to view outsiders with suspicion. It often sees the world as magical forces that must be appeased, which can all lead to superstition, groupthink, and resistance to change. When it's taken to the extreme, it can discourage questioning, individuality, or progress beyond the tribe's established ways of life. However, purple is where human meaning-making truly began. It laid the groundwork for culture, story, and spirituality. But as life became more complex, new challenges emerged that purple alone could not solve. The stage above purple is red, or PowerGods. Red is the stage where the individual breaks free from the tribe and asserts their personal power. It first emerged when someone questioned the tribal leader and was charismatic or dominant enough to garner support from others to rebel against the tribe. At this level, life is about dominance, strength, and the ability to impose your will. The world is seen as a place where the strong survive and the weak are either controlled or ignored. Red is raw, bold, and fearless. It values immediate gratification, personal glory, and the ability to conquer. This stage has driven the rise of powerful historical figures like Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great. It's pretty much the mindset of early empires and warlords. In present day, you see this in modern gang leaders or leaders of rebellious or terror organizations. Red energy has potential to build empires, take bold risks, and refuses to back down in the face of danger. It can inspire courage, ambition, and a deep sense of personal identity. But as it was hinted with some of the present day examples that I gave, this level certainly has a dark side. Red often lacks empathy, restraint, or long-term thinking. It can be violent, impulsive, and tyrannical. Justice is seen as whatever the most powerful person says it is. Relationships are often built on fear rather than trust. While red can break individuals free from the herd mentality of the previous stage, it often does so at the expense of others. However, red is an essential part of human development. It teaches the value of strength and courage, but without balance, it can lead to chaos, destruction, and a world ruled by ego and fear. Hopefully, none of you know anyone who are at this stage or any of the levels that are lower than this one. You usually see it in very torn down communities, but the following levels, you more than likely know several people who who are going to be in the stages that we're about to talk about. In fact, the majority of the world are in the stages that we're about to get into. Blue, or TruthForce, is the stage of order, structure, and absolute truth. At this level, people believe the world is best understood through a clear set of rules and values that provide stability and purpose. Life is no longer about personal power or domination. Instead, it is about doing what is right, following tradition, and fulfilling your duty. Blue believes there is one true way to live. Usually it's passed down through religion, law, or moral codes. So this mindset is often found in traditional religious communities. Think of figures like Ben Shapiro, who strongly defends Judeo-Christian values and structured belief systems, or pastors and church leaders who preach that salvation comes only through obedience to scripture and moral discipline. In fact, any conservative talking head that you see online and those who support the US Republican Party would be found at this level. For many, blue provides a sense of identity and purpose. It offers meaning in suffering and the comfort of belonging to a greater whole. Historically, the blue stage shaped civilization through law, religion, and moral order. It gave rise to institutions like the church, monarchy, and early republics. People at this level find deep value in service, sacrifice, and loyalty to a higher cause. But obviously, blue has its limitations. When it's taken too far, as many of you have seen, blue becomes rigid, judgmental, and intolerant of differences. It can lead to dogma, authoritarianism, and blind obedience. Those who question the rules are seen as threats. Progress becomes difficult when everything is filtered through what is quote-unquote right according to sacred texts or tradition. In today's world, this shows up in political polarization, religious extremism, and an unwillingness to see beyond black and white thinking. However, as with all the stages, blue is a necessary step in human evolution. It builds the foundation for law, ethics, and cooperation. But in order to grow and transcend, individuals must move beyond blind loyalty and begin to question whose truth are they actually following. Above blue, we have orange, or StriveDrive. Just like with the blue stage, you very likely know several people who are at this orange stage. They are in fact all over the place on YouTube and Twitch as online grifters. You see this stage in US Democrats and their supporters as well. And several billionaires, politicians, and online grifters cater to an audience who are at this level or in blue. Orange is the stage of progress, achievement, and personal success. At this level, people shift away from religious dogma and begin to prioritize reason, individualism, and measurable results. So this is where you start to see people becoming a bit more atheist. Truth is no longer handed down by tradition or sacred texts. Instead, it is discovered through science, logic, and experimentation. Orange is the mindset behind capitalism, innovation, and modern democracy. This is the worldview of entrepreneurs, business leaders, and many political centrists. People like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and Jeff Bezos exemplify this stage. People at Orange are driven by results, efficiency, and the desire to shape the world through innovation. On YouTube, this can show up in figures like Lex Fridman, or commentators who focus on meritocracy, data, and debate, such as Jordan Peterson, Cenk Uygur, Patrick Bet-David, Andrew Tate, or Joe Rogan. Yes, Joe Rogan is at stage orange. Interestingly though, each of the people I mentioned blends in traits from other stages as well. Though mostly from the stages that are below, others such as Joe Rogan might demonstrate some elements from stages that are above orange. Like all other stages, orange is a necessary stage. Orange gave rise to some of the most powerful advancements in human history. It created global markets, advanced medicine, and connected the world through technology. It values independence, competition, and the idea that with enough effort, anyone can succeed. However, there is still a lot of selfishness with this stage, and we know that those billionaires want to gatekeep this idea of success. Adding on to the negative traits of orange is the obsession with winning, wealth, and status, which leads to materialism, exploitation, and burnout. It often downplays emotional or communal needs, viewing them as inefficient or irrational. People at this stage might struggle to find meaning beyond their accomplishments or dismiss deeper human concerns as unscientific or weak. In politics, orange shows up as corporate influence, deregulation, and faith in the free market above all else. Orange did help humanity break free from rigid tradition and religious control, though. It introduced choice, ambition, and the pursuit of excellence. But without balance, it can create a world where value is measured only in money, power, and productivity, leaving little room for connection, compassion, or purpose. Next up, we have green, HumanBond. Just like with blue and orange, you will find some people at this stage, albeit less people than at blue and orange. And you will especially find people who are at this green stage in anti-political establishment groups. Green is the stage of community, compassion, and equality. At this level, people begin to question the competitive, success-driven mindset of the previous orange stage. Instead of focusing on personal achievement, green seeks connection, inclusion, and emotional depth. It values social justice, environmental sustainability, and honoring diverse perspectives. This is where you find modern activists, progressive educators, and spiritual seekers. However, something I do want to emphasize is that when it comes to spiral dynamics and spirituality, not everyone fits neatly into a single stage. Some people have a blend of values from two stages. For instance, someone who still identifies as an atheist but deeply cares about environmental protection, social justice, and diversity is likely embodying both orange and green traits. Their skepticism of spirituality often comes from orange's focus on evidence, logic, and scientific reasoning. Some at this stage who still believe in God may try to rationalize their faith through science or empirical arguments. For example, this is the experience that I had in middle school, high school, and early college, before I transcended past that stage. Others go through a phase in which they reject the existence of God altogether. It all depends on the path that the individual took. At the orange stage, spirituality is often dismissed or reinterpreted. People here prioritize achievement, autonomy, and measurable success. If they do engage in spiritual practices, it's usually for personal performance, such as using meditation to boost productivity, and not necessarily for deep inner transformation. At green, this is where we see a shift. Spirituality becomes more open and experiential, less about rules and dogma, and more about healing, empathy, and finding unity across differences. Many at green describe themselves as spiritual but not religious, often drawing from a variety of traditions to form a personal path. But once someone starts to see beyond individual perspectives and embraces complexity and systems thinking, they start stepping into the next stage up, which is yellow. And this is often where their understanding of spirituality changes again. But we will get to that in a bit. Think of figures who are anti-capitalist and anti-war, as well as many who are climate advocates, human rights defenders, and students protesting systems they see as unjust. Green emphasizes the importance of listening, healing, and creating space for marginalized voices. It's rooted in the belief that no one group has a monopoly on truth, and that community matters more than personal gain. Some smaller socialist or leftist commentators that you see in independent media would fall into this level, as do several of their audience. And if you've been following me for a while, back when I used to do more politically focused commentary, then you'd be familiar with some of the criticisms that I have for people who are at this level. There are certainly positive aspects from this level we should all integrate, but the goal should be to continue to grow and transcend to the higher levels of human development. Just because some of you are high up now on green doesn't mean there are still not some downsides to being at this level, but we will get to those in a bit. In today's culture wars, this is often the level that gets labeled as woke by conservatives. From advocating for racial justice and LGBTQ+ rights to calling out systemic inequalities, green can trigger pushback from earlier stages that feel threatened by change or that see this mindset as overly idealistic. But from the green perspective, such work is essential to creating a more compassionate and inclusive world. However, green is not without its flaws. In its pursuit of equality and inclusion, it can sometimes fall into groupthink or become intolerant of those it perceives as intolerant. Leadership and clear decision-making often become difficult, as the stage tends to resist hierarchy and conflict. There's also a tendency to overemphasize emotions while downplaying structure, which can lead to confusion or stagnation, especially when trying to navigate complex systems. I remember finding this especially frustrating frustrating when I was more involved with political commentary. The groupthink, the hero worship, it was everywhere. And I still see it to this day. And that dynamic made it easy for charismatic but disingenuous figures at lower developmental stages like orange or blue to manipulate those at green. People like Russell Brand, Tulsi Gabbard, and Elon Musk, for a time, were able to present themselves as aligned with green values, only to later reveal more self-serving or authoritarian agendas that reflect orange or blue thinking. Leaders of certain activist groups that get co-opted by some billionaires who are at stage orange or blue also mislead a lot of people who are at stage green. People like Bill McKibben, who led 350.org, and other activist leaders. It's hard to trust some of these people because when you look at who they are aligned with behind the scenes, who's paying them, it makes you realize that these people are not genuine at all. Several political commentators and journalists also operate at green, which is why many of them fall for the groupthink, hero worship, and other weaknesses at the green level. In hindsight, I realized that my frustration was a reflection of my own shadow. Green represents a stage that I had once and recently deeply resonated with, and criticizing it so harshly in past videos was partly me wrestling with that part of myself. I now believe that I operate from a stage that's right above green, which is yellow, and one thing about each stage is that the shadow tends to react strongly to the stages that are right below or right above it. That's why many at stage green take so much issue with people that are at stage orange. Because those at stage orange are the mainstream media viewers, the billionaires, and others who believe in the meritocracy of our current society. Also, many people who are at stage orange, who are usually liberals and atheists, take a lot of issue with people who are at stage blue. You know, the conservatives who are very religious and attached to tradition. We often project our unresolved issues onto those who think the way that we used to think, or who challenge the ways that we've just begun to transcend. I know it sounds like I've been going hard on green a lot, but it's actually a good thing that our society is starting to see an uprise of individuals who are at this stage, as opposed to the orange and blue that we still have a majority of in our society. Despite its challenges, green brings humanity a vital leap forward. It is the stage that fully embraces global thinking, empathy across cultures, and the interconnectedness of all life. It asks us to move beyond ego and competition, and instead build a world built on love, respect, and shared responsibility. Above green, we have yellow, FlexFlow, where a major shift happens in human development. At this stage, people begin to think in systems. They can hold multiple perspectives at once without becoming overwhelmed, and they no longer feel the need to impose their worldviews on others. Instead of clinging to one ideology, yellow thinkers are more focused on what works. They're highly flexible, self-aware, and often driven by curiosity and a desire to solve complex global problems. Someone at stage yellow might listen to conservatives, liberals, socialists, anarchists, and post-partisan perspectives not to agree or disagree, but to understand where each group is coming from within the broader evolutionary journey of human values, and only taking in elements that work while also seeing the flaws in all. Thinkers like Ken Wilber exemplify yellow. He has spent decades creating frameworks that unite science, spirituality, psychology, and philosophy into an integrative model of human development. Certain organizational leaders and systems theorists like Buckminster Fuller, Daniel Schmatzenberger, Jordan Hall, Peter Senge, and Joanna Macy also operate from this space, especially those working on long-term sustainability or global understanding rather than short-term wins. Compared to blue, orange, and green, there is a very small percentage of people in this world who are at yellow. Since this is still not the highest level of spiral dynamics, yellow still has its issues. Because yellow avoids dogma and embraces nuance, it can come across as distant or overly intellectual. People at this stage might struggle to connect emotionally with those at earlier stages. Or they may become frustrated when others don't see the bigger picture. There's also a risk of becoming overly focused on ideas and systems while neglecting the emotional or rational needs of others. Still, yellow plays a crucial role in helping helping humanity transition from polarized thinking into something more whole. So it's not about being better, but about being more inclusive of complexity without being trapped in it. Finally, Turquoise, or GlobalView, represents the highest stage in spiral dynamics. This is a level focused on holistic thinking, collective consciousness, and deep interconnectedness with all of life. People at this stage see humanity, nature, and the cosmos as one integrated system. It's rare to meet anyone at this stage, so it's hard to pinpoint examples of public figures who are at this stage. Some spiritual teachers, mystics, or global visionaries may operate from this level. Turquoise is not about ideology or activism. Turquoise is more about being in tune with a deeper, more unified awareness of existence. There might be other levels beyond Turquoise, but theorizing what those levels would be like would be beyond the scope of this introductory video. Spiral dynamics gives us a powerful lens to understand human growth, and we see how it is also a reflection of cultural and societal growth. It shows how our values, worldviews, and ways of making sense of life evolve in response to the challenges we face. From basic survival to systemic integration and spiritual insight, each stage represents a new way of seeing and being in the world. But growth through these stages isn't guaranteed. Many people and even entire societies can get stuck in a particular level, often mistaking it for the ultimate truth. The beauty of spiral dynamics is that it invites us to zoom out and recognize that every stage has value, limitations, and a place in our collective journey. And while this framework isn't about superiority, it does challenge us to keep evolving, to meet life's complexity with more empathy, flexibility, and wisdom. In upcoming videos, I want to dive deeper into each stage from purple and above, unpacking their strengths, struggles, and how they shape the way that we live, lead, and relate to one another. So if you're curious about how tribalism, authority, capitalism, activism, or integration all fit into this bigger picture, make sure that you subscribe and stay tuned. And we'll also explore other lines of development in Ken Wilber's integral theory. And check out this video right here to dive deeper into topics related to psychology, spirituality, and how the world affects you. Thanks for watching.